see, what time is it? 7:04. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, Lisa, let's start this meeting at 7:04.
Rosanna Glenn,
Here.
Shannon Hughes Brown,
Here.
Matt Blanchett,
Present.
Ken Cleveland,
Here.
Ken Jackson, Blaze Messenger,
Here.
John Post,
Here.
Jessica Rand, Heather Jacob, Melinda St. John, Jack Buckus,
Present.
Joe Costa, Joe Palata, Mary Fortenbach, Matt Zabrowski,
Here.
and Paula Luna. Here.
Okay, let's see, agenda approval. Any comments on the agenda? If not, take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken Cleveland. All in favor of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, agenda's approved. Approval of minutes from the December 12th meeting. These were sent out pre-Christmas. Very pre-Christmas. It's been a while since we all met. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Otherwise, I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second? Thank you, John. Any other discussion? All in favor of the minutes from the December 12th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay. Moving right along. Public comments. Anyone here for public comments? Any submittals?
Nope, I think we did.
Hearing no submittals, moving on to my update. I have no update because last time we met was right before Christmas, and I've been entrenched in holiday stuff. I hope you all were too. But happy New Year. I did bring some cookies back there. Feel free to grab one if you want a little snacky snack or take some home. That box has to go home empty, so please do not be shy. All right, communications.
All right, so the Communications Committee met this evening. Our community forum communications plan is written, and we will begin that next week to encourage community members to come to the community forum update that will take place at the end of the month. Our January newsletter will go out next week to all of our subscribers. We also received a media inquiry this week from the Middletown Press looking to write an update on the project, so we are answering the reporters' questions and supporting that. And that is the end of my report.
Quick question. Do you know how many people have signed up for that now?
For our,
The website then?
we have about 300 subscribers.
Thank you. Any other questions for the communications team? All right, Heather, do you have a design subcommittee report?
The only sign subcommittee update was that on December 19th, a couple of us met with some town personnel along with Perkins Eastman and Mike Segan from Richter Segan to go over the preliminary traffic studies. Nothing was kind of decided at that point. It was just informational. The traffic study has yet to be finalized.
Okay, thank you. Perkins.
Happy New Year, everyone. The agenda, so we're gonna have a site plan update, a couple new things that have been incorporated that was in the SD package. Building design update, which is mostly the admin area and the Board of Ed, a couple of design changes there, nothing major. Schedule update, update on the meetings that we've had, meetings that we're going to be planning, and the data gathering that's been occurring over the last couple of weeks, and then our next steps. So we've seen this site plan before. This is just showing again the area that we are trying to avoid with the existing building and existing service drive and utility area, which is why the building has been located here. And we have an updated rendered site plan that was in the schematic design package. Couple of notable changes that will blow up is the courtyard has started to get some design along with the rain garden basin here. The service area has been more developed and finalized, and then we've incorporated a connector between the two loops. So we can see here, so we start with this is the 6th grade wing and the 7th grade wing, the Media Innovation Center. So off of that we have a outdoor classroom that will connect through the courtyard, another outdoor learning area here, and then an amphitheater that will overlook the rain garden infiltration basin. This is just a reminder, this is a dry basin, so it won't be filled with water except after a rain event. Then there's also incorporation of a trail that goes through the wooded area with an outdoor learning station. Little closer blow up of that.
Is that trail just like a stone pathway?
Not sure what the material is. Probably that the state doesn't really like stone and gravel pathways. So
Whatever we make it out of, it has to be handicap accessible.
Right.
So
Okay.
whatever that surface is, we'll make sure that it's permeable and that it's accessible. So it might be stone dust, it might be something else.
Would it, would it be utilized by the cross-country?
it could.
Or,
Anybody who wants to use it could use it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but it's important to understand that the amphitheater really takes advantage of the natural grades
Slope,
that exist there, so they slope off. So there is a grade transition on this site that you would not normally see, but it's there. And so the stepping of the landscape takes advantage of that stepping of the natural grades.
It's almost like a dual purpose, so people don't roll down that hill.
Well, it's purpose design, right?
Right,
So,
right.
one of the key ingredients of this school is to provide an alternative to the athletic fields and the sort of, active sports area. And this is quieter, more academic, educational function of the school. And it's, between the academic wings of the building.
All
So
right,
it
so
kind of
that's-
makes sense.
So that's the more quiet educational zone versus the more active
Yeah.
athletic and parking and drop-off zone.
Is the fencing on there, is it closed off from the rest of the park? Like, after hours, could the community use those pathways?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, Ken, but there's a fence line. Zoom in again, Joe, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. You see that dashed dot line kind of in the woods there? Right there?
Yep.
That wraps around. That's sort of a demarcation line between what's happening outside the school property and versus what's inside the school property. As far as gates and locking and all that stuff, we're just not there yet. But that's
Sure.
something that we'll have to talk to the district about and, make sure that we have that access and, it all depends on how secure you want to make that part of the site.
All right,
Then,
good.
the pathway, I'm sure you've used it before, but decomposed granite, that's a good permeable material, and I don't know if that's something the town
Yeah.
would frown upon, but we've used it successfully in
Yeah.
lots of projects.
Yeah, it's a nice alternative to asphalt or pavement or something like that. I agree. Yeah.
Regarding the filtration basin, is that entire green space in the middle, is that the basin? Or is that like an open grassy area that we're gonna have to, are we gonna have to mow that from a maintenance
Yeah.
perspective?
The idea there is that it's not something that's going to be, it's not like a green for a golf course or something like that, but it's a more of a natural condition.
Yep.
And depending on what we put there, normally it's something like a meadow grass that gets cut twice a year, something like that, to prevent the weeds from taking over. That's about the only maintenance that we really have to do there. The landscape team have created, you see that 4-bay piece right there? Well, that's a smaller basin that pre-treats the water before it goes into the outdoor learning. So we don't expect a lot of sediment or a lot of debris getting into that area. So it's going to be fairly clean and, you know, easy to maintain. We wouldn't create a situation where we would expect it to be, you know, manicured or cut every couple days. That's not what we were intending.
So the service drive has been designed to come off through the bus loop for service vehicles, and it has the turning radius that it would pull in here, back into here, and it has the turning radius to come back out. So that's been worked out. The other thing to note is that off the cafeteria, this was formerly where the amphitheater was going to go, which is now just going to be a dining terrace, and that's been screened off from the service area and then has views out to the more natural area of the site. And then this would be the bus loop with the connector here, and this has been laid out so it would allow access for trucks to use if necessary. And then one of the other changes is maintaining this little parking area, which is existing, so that would reduce site demo and allow for more parking spaces to be more adjacent to this soccer field.
Was there a site issue if you were to go straight across that connector? Or is it going to be a 4-way stop?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually gated,
Yeah.
so it would only be open, meant to be open during like after hours use and for the soccer or whatever is being used on the field. So during school hours, oops, wrong button. These gates would be closed because we don't want cars that go through here or circumventing the drop off and going into the parking. So these gates would be closed during school hours.
Who has to close them?
Who has to close
It
them?
should be
I-
automatic.
Yeah, would that just be a
That's what-
manual
yeah.
kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, nothing
Yes.
on a
No,
timer.
nothing
Okay.
automatic.
Yeah.
No.
It'd be a
Just a
manual
manual
gate.
thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually a pair of gates, because what we don't want to do is encourage cross traffic during the normal school hours. It's really there for after hours, for emergency use, for convenience. It's much like what you have right now, instead of, with the cones that and I think sawhorses or something that you've got. It's a similar idea, that it just allows both sides of the site to have access with a vehicle without having to drive all the way around.
So someone would have to get out of their vehicle to lift the gate?
Oh, no, it's not. It's not for the operator. It's an operational decision that's made. It's not for the person that's just going there and
So
opening
like
the
if
gate.
a truck delivery decides to go through there because they're used to it, and they
Well-
get to that gate, how are they going to get through?
Go back the way you came and use the proper driveway. We're not going to encourage trucks to drive through there.
Right.
Okay. So administration would open it up to just relieve traffic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you've seen the side of the high school over here, there is a manual gate on that, and we have it open for service delivery. But usually it's a closed gate, and the custodian goes and opens it and closes it.
Okay. All right.
Oops, wrong button. Any other site questions?
Maybe just a comment where the outdoor seating is next to the cafeteria.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right next to the dumpsters?
I'm not sure where we are.
Are they gonna
planning
be
the
in that service
dumpsters.
area?
They would be in this service
On the other
area.
side of the wall, Jessica?
Yeah.
Do you have
Yeah.
like a
We have-
smell blocker?
Yeah, we have not yet designed that.
Okay.
That'll get there.
All right.
Figure out the winds and all that stuff.
Okay, that was a real technical question, by the way. Yeah, okay. I just can't imagine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are there bollards in front of the main entry? Is that something that's been thought about?
There would most likely be bollards in
Main entry.
area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Part of the security stand.
You're right, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you,
So,
we just haven't gotten to that level
Yeah.
of detail, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, typically there's bollards along here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course,
Especially along that walking path where you have the overhang where the kids come off the
Mhm.
bus, to just put something along that
Yeah.
between the, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
So, building updates, so we had some adjustments to the admin area and the Board of Ed area, mostly minor adjustments. One of the changes from the last time that we met is we've actually introduced a ramp and a stair within these corridors to drop these wings down to address the change in the slope in the site. So that will lower the scale of these two wings by about, I think it was about 18 to 24 inches. I think it was 24 inches. Because there is a slope, cross slope along the site, and we were trying to address that within the building to reduce any exterior ramping and stairs. And fill. So it also reduces the amount of fill that would be required.
Did you add the exit to the nurse's room?
No, we did not add that yet. A direct exit to the exterior. No, that was not add that yet.
Okay. And then what did we decide on for the Board of Ed, the
Yeah.
extra exit? Are we putting it in the?
Yeah, we'll show you in a second.
Yeah, I'll skip back. Yeah, so we added a tertiary exit off the superintendent's office. So we have the main exit here, an entrance. The secondary means of exit here. We adjusted this vestibule, so that's a secure vestibule from both spaces. And then what was the other? I think that was, we also adjusted this number of spaces based on comments that we received from the, yeah, it was basically just moving people around to get them in the right spots and right adjacencies. And then added this tertiary exit here.
We couldn't go towards the dock area because that's a firewall
Yeah.
separating, so what we did is decided the easiest route is
Straight
straight
back.
out the back.
Right. Yeah, so that's the firewall that separates the business use here from the education use. So minor changes in the admin area, is rearranging these desks so that they're facing out instead of facing towards each other. I think that was the comment. We provided an access from the SRO directly into the admin area. Removed the mailboxes and added some storage here. So the mailboxes are actually in the faculty dining workroom area instead of in the main office. This connector, I believe, was added. It might have been there already. That was a change from at some point. And then we still have to explore how we're going to access, direct access out of the nurse's office. So it'll probably be through this. Instead of having a window here, we'll have a door. Any questions on the floor plans?
That mechanical room off of yeah, right there. Is that also soundproof, so they're not going to hear any?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be plenty of acoustics, especially since there's a 8-inch firewall here, and then there'll be acoustical walls on both sides of it. So,
Okay.
or at least on this side. I don't know if it'll be required on that side. We haven't got the acoustical report yet, so once we get that, we'll make sure that it has the proper STC ratings between those spaces.
Was,
Before- Oh, go ahead.
just when that came up from, I think last time was the space for a printer on each floor, like a little printer
Oh,
workstation.
Yes.
Yep. Good point.
Let's see.
See a little gray box.
Yeah, so I think it's right here, this little, so we incorporated it in there,
On 3 floors.
and then on the upper floor.
We don't have.
the other little nook? Is that like the maintenance? Maintenance?
Which nook?
Data.
The other little gray square up farther.
Yeah, that's a data
Oh,
closet.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
It goes all the way down, or is that? Oh,
That's a science prep room.
oh, prep. Oh, yeah, that's a joint space.
Yeah, so
I
that's
gotcha. Okay.
science, and then the prep, and then it's a data closet.
Yep.
I believe on both floors,
Okay, and then you're saying the other little.
and then that
Square
one right
there.
there is
Oh.
would be the copy room.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, I've got a couple questions. So in the central office area, regarding the conference room, I think we talked about this last time, and we might have postponed some of the discussion because we've got windows there. But what we learned at North Haven when we toured that school was there was a big conference room in the main entrance, and people could see students sitting in there, and they were constantly moving the blinds. Sorry, if you can refresh my memory, did we talk about just changing the windows or coverings on the windows?
Yeah, there were a number of thoughts. One of them was to, of course, raise the sill.
Yeah.
That'd be one. The second was to have the lower sash as obscured glass, so that when you stood up, you got the view, but when you were seated, you'd get that privacy.
Okay.
And then there's also some potential for some landscaping outside that space. We don't know exactly
Okay.
which is the best scheme, but we heard
Okay,
that
so
loud.
still-
Yeah, we
still-
heard
okay.
that. We heard that loud and clear.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yep.
And then the other question I had that I can't remember if it came up, in either the central office or the main office area, I think when we toured Colchester, there was a small seating area. It was almost like the space of a closet, where there was a small desk and a chair in a glassed-in room for a student to be sitting if they needed to be pulled out of school and sit in the office. Did we talk about a space like that, or are they just
Yeah.
using some of these
I
areas?
think we have that. Oh, you're talking about the central office or the main office of the school, Jessica?
I think we had talked about it in the context of one or the other, because I think they pull students out and either
Yeah,
put
we
them
have-
in the central
we
office
have a
or.
designated
Central
space
office
for
they
that.
have.
Central
Okay.
office is a small group room
Okay.
for students that aren't allowed in school for a couple days, and
Got
they
it.
could go there and still receive education.
Go to main office for a second.
Got
There's
it.
also
Thank
that
you.
that gray space up at the top, you can't read it.
Oh, in-school suspension
That's it.
right there.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
called that, but
Okay.
in essence, that's what
Okay.
that's what it is.
All right, so we have spaces for students to go when they're
Yes.
pulled out of the classroom?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Where are the all-inclusive bathrooms?
So
We have
I
them.
wish we had the yes.
Just kidding.
So there's one, I believe they're adjacent to the group toilets here and
Yeah.
here.
Is that what the T? I thought the T was for teachers,
Yeah,
but it's
no,
not the
it's-
teacher.
Oh, it's just for
bathroom?
toilet.
Toilet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the staff toilets adjacent to that. And then there's one here. There's 2 single-user toilets here.
Locker.
And then there's,
Locker room.
and oh yes, and there's also the space within the locker room. I forget exactly
It's
where
on
it
the left
is.
side of that passage.
I think it's here. Is it
No,
here
the
and
other
here?
side. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I think there's one on each side.
There's a changing room and the toilet dedicated to that.
And then I was looking at your schematic for the auditorium. It shows 326 capacity. I thought we were aiming closer to 500, which is what our current one is, I believe, or 4
I
something.
think the ed spec says a minimum of 250. So that's what the ed spec says, and so what we tried to do is fit as many seats in the square footage allocation that we could. Now, there's probably maybe a half a dozen or a dozen additional seats that we can get in there, so we're still in the process of getting as many seats as we can in the allocated program.
Do we lose seating if we put 2 aisles in that auditorium?
Yes.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's why we went with a center
Yeah.
aisle.
okay.
Yeah,
And it's a little wider then, too, for capacity.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not nuts
Yeah.
about the
I
ramps.
thought we changed that spec.
Which ramps? Oh, in the
The
in
interior
corridors?
ones?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I-
Okay.
The only thing I get why you put them inside.
Yeah.
But like, especially the one on the north side, seems
Yeah.
like you could just make that all one ramp if you just adjusted the doors a little bit, so you're not splitting it with, half ramp and half stairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a door here.
Yeah, but you can flip the door to the other side.
Yeah, and that would drop. Yeah, I guess we could drop that down.
I would just challenge you to look at that a little harder.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting
Full ramp.
full ramp, no stair?
No,
Yeah.
it seems, people walk on the right side, and splitting it's like what, an 8-foot wide hallway. Splitting it seems to make it a bottleneck to me.
Okay.
Can you remind me about the little bump out notch? I guess on the main street, right? Yeah, or the bump out between the spaces. Yeah. Well,
Here.
Remind me again. I thought that was just to get some natural light in there. But what
Yeah.
is that area as well?
It's just like this area here.
Yeah.
It's a canopy.
Isn't it a trellis?
It's a trellis,
It's
yeah.
a trellis
Oh.
with a paved area with some steps to the grade. It's pretty simple.
Let's see if it's.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that in the site plan, right there.
Yeah, it's not showing
Yeah.
up here. It would be. I think that's the line of the edge of the trellis there.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember what was the rationale? What was the rationale between even having that knockout? Was it for natural light or no?
It
You need some
was.
space to get
Just-
accessibility,
Yeah,
right? Like
just
you
to
need-
get into the courtyard without
Yeah,
having to go
from
through
Main Street
right.
without.
Right.
Okay.
So it
Exactly.
gives-
Instead of having to go through the media center, for example.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing somebody from a different part of the building, you can get right to the outside.
Right. Okay.
So it gave access from Main Street. Also gave north light to this art room that's located
Oh.
here.
Okay. Yeah, I guess both of those sides can now have glass. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Because I remember you were saying how we're gonna have the pitched roof and we're gonna have the vertical glass there.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, Main Street should have ample natural light, but I agree the access is another reason. Okay. Sorry.
One more question on the auditorium. Is there any concern with egress having only a center aisle? Is there room on the outside in case people needed to get out the other?
Looks like
Side
there's
of the
exit
seating
doors
areas?
on the other side.
Yeah. This.
Yeah, we have
no.
side
There's,
South side
there's
then.
an aisle here, but
Right.
that's access from the stage. So and then, so you
We have an access on the north side.
Yeah.
We'll check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure that obviously we have the correct way.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a house, so I'm not that worried about it.
Okay, I just don't want to buy the ticket for sitting up against the wall, that's all.
I think it's gonna be a problem if we only keep it to 326 seats in the auditorium.
Yeah, we should
The
check.
community
We
was
should check the
very-
ed spec again, because my recollection was that there were more seats than that.
The one I saw, and maybe I don't have the latest one, says 250 min.
That's
But
250 minimum.
we had
Yep.
a lot of
Yeah,
public
and-
feedback requesting at a minimum what we have today, which is 496, I believe. or
Right,
something.
and that was the basis for us wanting to go get a waiver as well.
You're right, we're gonna get a space waiver.
Yeah, so where's the extra, because we've always anticipated extra square footage for the auditorium.
Right.
So is it in the back of house, or is it,
No, the house is 3,500 per the ed spec.
It was 3,500 between the auditorium and the stage.
No, the stage is 950 on top of the
I see.
3,500. And then there's 600 square footage of storage.
It was 3,500, auditorium seating, 3,500 square feet.
Yep.
So on your diagram, does it include all that back space as well, or just the seating area only?
No, the seating area, and then you have the stage, and then you have the storage.
I know, but, I'm looking at your spec here. It says 3449 square feet auditorium. Is that just the seating area, or does that also include the, whatever this OCC area in the back is?
Does not.
Does not include that?
No. And by the way, the ed spec says not less than 250 seat auditorium.
we need to check that, because that may be a bust in the ed spec.
Looking at it right
Yeah,
here.
it was supposed, yeah, that's what I'm seeing too, and I don't know why it still says that, because I thought we changed that. We went to the Board of Ed, they put an amendment to it to increase that. So, was anyone here from the Board of Ed? So either they, Matt, do you remember doing that vote? When I came in, we talked about it, increasing it?
I remember the discussion. I don't remember taking the vote on it, but I remember having a discussion about
Do we
So
know?
I think well, Perkins Eastman designed did the best they could, but with the information they have, but it could be they had the wrong information.
Well, that being the case, and if the intention is to seek a space waiver to get the additional seating area,
Right.
then we're going to need to define that, we're gonna need to price it. And so we would need a scheme, a schematic layout as to what a 500-seat auditorium would look like. So
Would it
Joe and Joe, is that,
Would it be
Have
as
you
simple as
explored-
widening the auditorium?
No, what we did is we designed to the ed spec, and then what we tried to do is fit as many seats, fixed seats as we
Right.
could.
Yeah,
That's
I
how we
think
got that
I think
300.
they did the best they could,
Yeah.
but we have some homework to do. We got to figure out
Yeah.
why the ed spec says only 250 seats.
There was
Just go to
supposed
the
to be an
plan.
amendment. I don't know if it was ever
Just wanna see.
finalized.
What is this?
I'm not sure if the prior firm
The auditorium larger,
made the auditorium larger.
to 1,300 square feet, but it didn't specify the number
Yeah.
of seats.
It didn't, so we just talked about the stage.
The
Can you zoom in there, can you just
1,300
blow up that up?
I kind of recall maybe that was going into the back of house, but I do remember we definitely talked about 500 seats.
We did. Maybe we never correlated it back to the square footage that 500 seats would take up.
It could be.
Yeah, just the minutes just say motion to approve the CMS educational specs as amended to make the auditorium large.
I'm sorry. To approve the CMS educational specs as amended to make the auditorium larger to 1,300 square feet. And it's pretty vague.
Auditorium or the
It's-
stage? Because
it was-
auditorium is 3,500 square
I
feet.
know.
Why?
The minutes say auditorium.
They meant the stage. Auditorium stage, not
Yeah.
the auditorium.
What date was that one?
April 5th,
April
Board of Ed. Those are April 5th Board of Ed
Because the stage,
minutes.
well, here, the stage on this says 950 square feet.
Yeah.
So that should have been 1,300 square feet. Unless it's,
That plus the storage.
but then that's 1,500 square feet. So something's not jiving.
Yeah.
Okay, if we. I don't know. Yeah, maybe we can have some options for what would it be. I mean, it would seem pretty big to basically double the number of seats that are allocated.
You need a third
Yeah.
bigger.
250 square,
Yeah.
250 seat, yeah, final draft.
So 3,500.
Yep.
Just quick math here.
301, 26.
It's about 10.7 square feet. You would need 5,300 square foot area. It's an extra almost.
Okay.
1,900 square feet.
Is there any ability to have a balcony? I know then you need stairs and probably other things. But is there vertical space? I wasn't sure how the height of
Yeah.
this area of the building.
you would need 2 stairs and an elevator.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's more expensive, I would think.
One of the things to keep in mind is if we do exceed the space standard, obviously there's more to pay for. But also, if we commit to increasing the auditorium and you don't get the space waiver, based on the math, what percentage over the space standard you are. Let's say you end up at, 3%, 4% over. So at 4%, they would give you a space standard of 0.96, which means all of your expenses will get a haircut of 4%. So it's not just the build out of that space, but your fees, your furniture, all of your attendant project costs then get reduced by that percentage factor. So there's a ripple effect to to coming in oversized. And if the town is committed to that's great. We just want you to go in with your eyes wide open.
I just know it's gonna it's gonna go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah, so there were at least two versions of the ed spec, at least two versions, right? I mean,
Well-
there should have been a post April 5th
Right.
amendment.
And I don't
or
think they even
vote.
have that one, because that one has the increased stage size. We went higher with the stage.
So do we need to lay out a course of action here? So we're definitely going to need to talk to Anne if we stay with this design. So we're going to need her feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a community thing, right? Because we
Mhm.
had so many people coming to us, and they even came to the town council voicing their opinions on the matter, so.
Rosanna, is the target 500? Is that what was?
Right, they didn't want any smaller, so today they have 496 seats.
So we're talking about 500 is what the target would be, okay.
And they pack it in today as it is, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, we're about 174 short in this design, okay?
Yeah, and one of the reasons that Anne was asking for staying with the current number of seats is she'd like to be able to have whole school assemblies.
Right.
If it's much smaller than that, she
460
can't. Yeah.
Right.
With the teachers sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, do you think so these are all fixed seats that you have in there now?
Yeah.
If we changed to pews and calculated at 18 inches per person, be tight, but
Yeah, we've done pews in elementary schools because tushes are a lot smaller,
Yeah.
right? So you can get more kids. In middle school, it's a little bit more problematic for obvious reasons, Ken.
sure.
You know, we want space between our kids.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, that
adults
would-
sit in pews in churches, I
Yeah.
don't see the issue. You know?
Different environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can look at it, and we can give you a calculation fairly easy.
kinds of compromises we may need
Yeah, yeah.
Would it? Yeah. Well, we're not gonna come up with a silver bullet here, but should we kind of put a punch list of if you had to take space, take from here, or is there some fungibility within the space? You know, little corridors we can give up, or is it kind of like hey, what we have now is
Yeah.
there's no wiggle room at all, so it
Well,
would be a gross ad.
I think the process would be for you guys to decide what you want it to be, and then let us take a look at the plan and give you some suggestions, and then,
Okay.
you know, we can talk about eligibility, we can talk about cost, all that kind of stuff later.
I guess I would need help understanding how you could get to 500 seat capacity.
Well, that's what we would want to take a look at. I don't want to give you an answer right now,
Oh, no,
Rosanna.
no,
Yeah,
not
but
right now. I'm just saying
yeah.
that's kind
Well,
of
that
the
was
direction.
that's the intent. We
Right,
would,
right.
you know, sort of put our heads together and say, here's a couple of different options.
Yep.
Well, because you were saying we were at close to 330.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
at 326 right
326.
now.
The version I have says approximately 280 seats. So I don't know.
Their latest specs at 320.
I'm on page 76 of
I don't know.
114.
I don't-
Oh,
The manual.
Yeah, we
oh, the
can't- we
manual. The
can't-
manual is not matching the schematic.
Yeah, we'll figure out that number.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the number is, the target is 500. That's the
Yeah.
The bogey.
Yeah.
And moving on to the art room. We had talked about the art room having a glass wall so that people can see the arts. Is that going to be a half wall? Because I see also a counter in there,
I think it is.
a half wall.
Yeah. Yeah, you need perimeter counter space in those spaces, so most likely the window starts above the counter.
So they're not. So their cabinet space is going to be below that
Yeah.
counter.
Yeah. And again, that's going to be developed in design development. We're still, you know, we're going to get there, and what we'll do is we're going to enlarge all these spaces and sit with the educators and present them to you guys. Not quite there yet.
So I do love the idea of all the natural light in there in the art classroom. I'm just curious from a teacher and a student standpoint, will students perform or really be engaged in academics, or is it like sitting in a fishbowl?
It's a good point. That is the downside to having a lot of
Mhm.
glass. If there's some students in there that are a little bit more shy, that certainly would be an issue. But we do like the idea of the art being on display, because making art, doing art is kind of interesting, right? And so we like that as a thing that students see as they come in and out of the building, because we'd like to encourage people to be interested in the arts. It's just
I
what we
imagine
like.
those windows being covered in artwork, and
Yeah.
that classroom is more doing, less listening,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's some instruction. I mean,
we-
there's instruction, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of.
One of the things that we have done is we've actually created shelving at the wall so that students put their artwork on the shelving so that it creates a display and also obscures some of the view into the room. So it's kind of an interesting solution. It's
Okay.
and and the art changes after every few
Oh, yeah,
weeks.
as an adult walking through the school, I would love to see that too. I would want to hear from the teachers to see if that's something that our students going to be distracted,
It is a prominent spot on the plan. It's right there, right next to the front door.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Okay.
Plus, it has the access to the outside, so that when students are sketching or doing
Yeah,
some
they're
stuff
right
out
in the
there.
middle of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why we put the art classroom there.
Yep.
But, okay.
Jumping back a second, and this is to Jack, what's the process for the space waiver as far as a timeline? I mean, we kind of want to know whether we're getting the space waiver before these folks go into the full design development. And you see my inquiry, where we're going with it?
In best scenario, if we have an educational driver for a space waiver that can be presented to OSCGR and convince them of the academic need. I'm thinking of another project where we had some redundant, what appeared to be redundant facilities in the building, but there was an academic driver for having two of the similar spaces. We were able to convince staff at the department level to grant the space waiver, and it did not require special legislation. If you don't convince folks at the staff level, which we could start that conversation, we've got a meeting coming up, the schematic design review, present the two scenarios, identify what the difference in square footage and cost might be, explain what the academic reasoning is, and try to sell it there. If that were unsuccessful, then in this legislative session, ask for special legislation that would give you the bump. But you're not going to know about that until June. It's a long session this year. So we've had long sessions where they're establishing a budget where that particular piece of the budget doesn't get reconciled until the fall. So we could actually be in a position of wanting to be under construction and still not having an answer if legislation is required. So our best bet is to try to articulate the academic need and convince them at the department level.
Has that meeting been scheduled?
SDR is on the books. I just don't remember the date off the top of my head. Or am I getting my projects confused again?
I don't remember a date being assigned.
I may be, Christmas cookies, yes. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember. All right. Any other discussion on the layout? Okay.
No, we have not scheduled that yet. We did need a trajectory as to when we're going to have it reconciled. So. Yeah, I would think that, just checking the calendar, it was my companion project that's already been scheduled. I would think with our timeline for our estimate and reconciliation, it would probably be the early part of February when we would be making that presentation to the state.
which should then give you folks enough time to come up with preliminary numbers and adjustments of square footages and things like that? Okay.
Certainly well before that.
'Cause, I mean, I don't want to go full steam ahead with design development based on a 500-seat auditorium that's
Well-
going to flop,
well-
and it's just going to delay everything down the line.
You know, what we don't want to do is hold up the bus because of one piece of the puzzle, right? So what we want to try to do is progress the rest of it as much as we can, because we do have a deadline, and as Joe is going to explain, a very short deadline.
So we've seen this graphic before, so the line keeps slowly creeping to the right. We're now in the design development phase. We have about 9 weeks scheduled for that, and DD would be due first week of March. It's actually the 3rd is the Friday. Then we'd be moving into construction documents, which would be ending around the end of May, beginning of June. And then document review and approvals with the state, and then bidding in the summer and breaking ground beginning of September.
September or October?
October.
October.
Get his eyes are not.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, beginning of October.
Oh, okay.
No, Joe, we didn't gain an extra.
Well, I had us losing a month.
His eyes are not.
All right, so meetings and data gathering. So update on the survey. So the survey's been completed. It's getting to our traffic engineer. I believe he's getting it tomorrow. He will analyze the survey with the information he's already gathered and confirm his findings. And we're looking to get the traffic study probably by the end of next week. So that would be around the 13th.
When do we go back to the town with,
I don't think we've scheduled a town staff meeting
when
follow-up
do we
yet.
want to go back to the town?
After we have the traffic study finalized.
Do we need to go to town council again, or do we go straight to the planning zoning people?
I would talk to town staff first and have the consensus about what you're gonna, what the
Okay.
consensus.
All right.
And then, I will double check and come back to the town council with the traffic study working towards that.
'Cause next town council meeting's next Tuesday? The 10th? Wednesday, 11th?
No.
Yeah. So you're not gonna have anything by then anyway? Okay.
But even if they had to come back to the town council, is there a need to have it any sooner than the council meeting in February? Do we need for some reason to?
Okay.
So as Heather pointed out, we did meet with the town staff on the 19th to review the initial traffic findings, but we're waiting for the final report. There was a lot of discussion regarding the entries, as that's their main concern. We had a couple of recommendations for the existing main entry, which would either be a three-way stop or a school zone with flashing lights. There is the average speed exceeds the posted speed, and that's what's causing the sightline issue with the hill. So slowing traffic would be the mitigation issue there.
So we're proceeding with using the Gear Street entrance and the options
Currently,
to
yes.
utilize that, right?
Yeah. Our environmental consultant, Jim Twitchell, who's Hygienics, did the building survey over the winter break, and his report will be prepared and ready the week of the 17th. Geotech has been out yesterday and in the rain today doing the borings for the
them.
test pits. Yes.
I pointed it out to my kids, like, look what they're doing.
Yes. Avoiding the sprinkler lines in the soccer field and coordinating with Melinda. So their report will also be the week of the 17th. The flow test, our consultants are scheduling that with the water department. The scheduling process. Luckily, with the warmer weather, we hope to get it soon, this week or next week. We don't want to.
What's a flow test?
The flow test is in order to determine the amount of pressure that the water system will have, and if it'll determine if we need a fire pump or not.
Okay.
We are hoping not, because they're a little expensive and they take up room. Next meetings to occur, we have a meeting to discuss the PA and security communication systems on the 10th. We also would like to schedule with Melinda facilities to review the district standards on fire alarm, pumps, roof systems, all the standards that the district would have, so we could match that for long-term and maintenance. Also make sure that we don't put any manufacturers that the district is not happy with using. And then we'd also like to schedule a meeting with the building inspector, fire marshal, health department, and the 504 accessibility officer to review the project design and introduce them to where we are with the project.
And we have the community forum on the 25th. Right?
Yes, it's on the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Ew.
next steps. So the schematic design estimates are being prepared. Our estimator and Arcadis are preparing it. And Newfield are preparing estimates. So we got to schedule the reconciliation meetings. We would need, once that occurs, we want sign off on the SD package. And then any comments that you have, that we've received some of them tonight on the package, but any further comments on the package, we'd like to get those and start to incorporate those into the design development package. We had our internal DD kickoff meeting with the team. We're bringing more members on to assist with the design. And DD will be a lot more detailing and coordination of systems with the engineers. We'll be further developing the massing and elevation and materials. There'll be presentations on exterior materials and interior materials coming up in design development. Continued discussions with educators and the design subcommittee. We'll present the materials to you guys first before bringing it to the full committee. The design team, as we stated, would like to have meetings for facilities. The community information meeting will be on the 25th, and we have a test run meeting the week before to be determined which date that'll be. Planning and zoning submission, that date's to be determined, and the SD update with the state was also to be determined, and then the DD submission will be on the ending of the week of the 5th of March. And that's our 1 month and 3 month look ahead. Any
Do you
questions?
have any expected risk from the results of the boring study? Because it used to be farmland, and who knows what kind of, I mean, this is like decades and decades and decades ago, so you'd hope that it doesn't exist anymore, but is there
Right.
any kind of,
Unknown.
Yeah, there's always
Yep.
unforeseen circumstances when,
Yeah,
when you dig in soil.
Yeah, Rosanna, we know that the ground drains very, very well. What we don't know is what the consistency of the stuff below the topsoil is. So that's what the
Right.
borings will tell us. And, so there'll be two components to that is, whether the material is good for bearing and also the drainage characteristics and if there's any water, high water tables. That's the information that we're going to be most interested in.
okay, so contaminants and things like that are less of an interest?
That's a different consultant
Oh, okay.
doing that, yeah.
All right, so this is not about, because I'm worried about the exit from the shop. Like, we don't know what they dumped back there back then, so.
Yeah, we'll talk to our environmental consultant, find out if he's taken some samples of that material.
Okay.
And if he's had a chance to test it.
Any other questions, anyone?
Joe, we should get at least one copy of the set for the town's records, full size.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I needed a half-size set, but I'm good without it.
Okay.
Does anybody else think we might need one?
No, but we want to make some of those minor changes first before you go printing things out, and just confirm that your manual matches what's in the spec. Since we already found one kind of disconnect.
Okay.
And then the bathroom off the nurse's station.
Yep.
exit door off the nurse's station.
Again, Rosanna, some of what you're talking about is some of the natural progression of
Yeah.
the design that happens in design development. So
Okay.
we've pretty much put a pin in the map as far as schematics is concerned when the
I was just saying
deadline
before
came
they
and it,
printed
and it,
something
and it
out.
moved.
I'm just saying before they print it instead of wasting all that.
So, Ken, are you asking for a record set of schematics?
Yeah, I think we just need a record
Yeah,
set, but
as
I don't, as it is, I don't
stands.
think we need to.
As it stands.
You'll incorporate those changes as we get into DD.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing, is
Um,
we're either talking about a record set of schematics
Okay.
or we're talking about a progress print.
Yeah, it's just a record set for the town's
Okay.
records.
Good.
All right. That works.
Yeah, the manual is 11 by 17, so and then the drawing's at 30 by 42.
Okay, any other discussion? No questions? Okay, let's move on.
Oh, I have one question. Who should I send that to?
You can send that to Amanda.
Amanda? Okay.
Yeah. All right, Arcadis. Oh, wait, before we do that, we need to vote on the traffic study that I verbally approved before break.
Oh, the ASR?
Yeah.
So that was additional services for additional survey work.
Additional
to
survey work.
complete the traffic study.
Right, additional survey work for the traffic study. It was 9,780 something. I don't remember. Do you remember the amount off the? Okay, hold on. I'll find out real quick.
7535 for
I'll
the
find out real quick.
1215 exchange.
Give me 1 second.
If I get it right, I get another cookie.
Yes, you do.
7535.
You get the whole box.
Okay, get the whole box. Here we go. It was 75.35. Is that what you said? Oh, very good. You get. All right. So I will take a motion to approve the 75.35 for the additional survey work that was presented in this email back from December 8th.
Who was the vendor?
SLR is
SLR.
is the bulk of the additional service request.
It should be in the motion, though, that it's additional expenditure to SRO in the amount of.
Yeah, well, it's technically
two-
the
two
us.
Perkins Eastman.
Yeah, they're our consultants.
For you, okay.
Right.
To Perkins Eastman for the additional $7,535 for the survey work by SLR.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ken and
And
Blaze?
again, this is for the work to that that
Right.
bump out of the road. This isn't the Gear Street, like additional traffic study of the Gear Street and all that entrance.
No,
or
it's
anything.
for the bump, right?
It's
Well, it's all.
It
the
was for
additional-
both.
It's for both.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So Ken and then Blaze second it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Anyone abstaining? Okay. Passes. All right. Now we can go move on to Arcadis.
Okay. Can you, not a lot graphically to show this time around, but to talk about the overall trajectory of the project, the contracts for commissioning agent and construction manager are not yet consummated. A question came back from the insurance folks about the level of liability insurance the commissioning agent was carrying. As a condition in their proposal, they said, we don't typically carry the levels that you are requesting. We can get a quote if you want one, but this is what everybody is generally comfortable with and what we typically carry. I guess in the discussion about their proposal, that particular note was not highlighted in the committee's discussion. We've asked that question to the town, would you be comfortable accepting X million, which is their standard coverage? And I'll just say, this is a question that's come up in a number of other committees when it's come to the topic of commissioning. And some folks look at it in parallel to, well, the mechanical engineer is carrying X million, we want the commissioning agent to carry X as well. In response to the town's request, yes, please go get a quote, SES went out to their insurers and other carriers as well, who all said the same thing. your work does not present that level of risk, therefore I will not sell you that number of millions in liability coverage. They can get close to the number that the town was asking for, but it's simply not available to go up to that level because they don't do that type of work. They're verifying work, they're not designing the work. So the risk is not there. That being said, they're willing to go to that higher increment. We've asked the town if they can get close but still can't hit your number, do you want them to pursue quotations, or will you accept the level of insurance that is their standard, which was already covered in their proposal? So we're waiting for that answer to come back, and that's the only fly in the ointment as far as consummating that agreement. As to the CM's agreement, first of all, I'd like to recognize the folks from Newfield who are with us tonight, many of whom you'll probably remember from the interview. We're happy to have them on board, and they are willing to pursue and are active in the estimating process. So we will have a full CM estimate for schematics, even though we don't have signed paper with them yet. That agreement is in the hands of the town's attorney for review. We still haven't gotten the comments back from the attorney. Hopefully everything will be smooth sailing and we can expedite the process of getting signatures. On the topic of estimates, unfortunately, there was a bit of a snafu with my estimating team. We had originally earmarked time in their schedule for December. Schematics were not available to the end of December, and they've got somebody in line in front of me for January. So one of the reasons we were pushing to get our people on board was because we didn't think we would have a CM in time for the schematic estimate. So if the committee is okay with it, I would propose that we take the time that they were going to spend, my people were going to spend on a schematic estimate, and allow that to deepen their dive in the DD and CD estimates if they need those hours there. If not, we'll make some adjustment in our fee. But go with just the two rather than delay the process, which is going to put us basically 2 weeks out of sync with where we wanted to be with estimating, which is not going to do us any favors as far as scheduling that meeting with the state or giving you the confidence to proceed in a fairly accelerated design development process of only 9 weeks long. So I would ask your authorization to skip having Arcadis do a schematic estimate, and working with the two estimating houses, Perkins Estimator as well as Newfield. We may need to adjust the due date by a couple of days in order to allow everybody to do a thorough estimate of the project. And I think, given what I'm seeing in the market with other estimates that have come in within the last several weeks, I'd rather have a good estimate than a fast estimate. So if we can be fungible on those due dates by a couple of days, I think we're going to be better off for it.
And you're saying not have Arcadis do their own estimate?
No, unfortunately, my estimate would come in too late to really be worthwhile to explore in the reconciliation process.
So once we get the estimate, let's say that we get one estimate that's, I don't know, I don't even know what our numbers are anymore, 50 million and the other one's 60 million, right? What do we do with that information?
Well, when estimates are developed independently, we then go into what's called a reconciliation, where we haggle over the details. You thought we needed 5, I think we need 7. Well, what's the right number? I think it's worth $1.50 a square foot. You think it's worth $4 a square foot. Which one of us is right, or where is the market going, so we can come to an agreement. After that process of reconciliation, we kind of do a summary of it, and we shift the numbers back and forth to see where the dust settles, so that everybody is essentially talking about the same project. And that's what a lot of the reconciliation effort is. I think this material, that was talked about in a narrative is made of gold. Well, the architect says, no, it wasn't made of gold. This is what we intended. And we work out those details so we're all speaking about the same project. When the dust settles and we adjust the numbers accordingly, then we'll find out just where we stand, whether it is closer to 50 or closer to 60. Or if everybody comes in and each estimator comes in and says, we think that we're at X dollars, whether it's on or above budget, we still want to make sure that everybody's speaking the same language. Because you might be low on one thing, I might be low on another one. Turns out that the high number is the right number on both, and everybody's number goes up. And if that's the case, we want to know that now before we get so deep into design development that it costs money to change course. Now, that being said, if we find out that we're in a pickle financially, then we need to look long and hard at the content of the project and say, are we willing to make adjustments at this point? Are we willing to remove square footage? Are we moving towards a different palette of materials? Having those discussions again before design development is completed, so that we can adjust the content. And if everyone looks at it and says, this is what the ed spec requires, this is what we sold to the community, there is no other palette of materials that's going to get us there, or we can't cut square footage because we're already just meeting program, then we know the only answer to that question is that we need a budget adjustment. When it comes to budget adjustments in the current dynamic, which we've been in now for the last 12 or 18 months, working with projects through OCGR, the best conversations that we've been able to have focused on numbers that are confirmed by bids. In fact, I'm working with Tom at Newfield on a project right now where we know that the number that was developed for the budget of that project, so far long ago and without proper foundation, that throughout the project, we knew we had a problem with the budget. We've had those conversations with the state and said, you're so close, wait a little longer, get the bids in, then have the conversation with us. So here, if we find at the end of schematics that we're in trouble and the only answer is funding, not program changes, then we'll basically need to tread water until we get those bids in before we can ask for additional funding. And that would require likely a second referendum, with the results of which we would then carry to the state saying the town is in favor of supporting X additional dollars. May we have some more, please? So it would be an iterative process, which when it comes to implementing construction, the process of getting the dollars from the state can be short or long depending on how many dollars we're speaking of. Generally speaking, if we're asking for something that's 10% or less of the original project appropriation, there has been latitude at the commissioner's level to approve such numbers. When the numbers exceed 10% of the original appropriation, then it gets into the realm of having to go back to the legislature. If that were to occur with not having bids until after the legislative session is ended, we wouldn't know until next year's legislative session that we have the supplemental funds. So then if we moved forward with construction in that interim, the town would basically be committing up front that they want the project and would be at risk for whatever that increment would be.
Okay. I assume if you go back to the state, you'd want to do it once.
By statute, we are allowed one return bite from the apple.
Right. And I'm hearing that the best is to wait for the bids because you'll have actual values.
Yes.
And that'll be out of their session anyway, because that's not going to happen until June, July next year.
It's
This
likely
year?
that the session will extend into June, end of May, June.
I think we went to bid starting in June, right? I think that's what the schedule has us doing.
Well, I think looking to start, I think you said that
We're going to
your
break ground in October.
CDs would be end of May, early June, so we would not have bid numbers until after the session ends.
Right. Be really, yeah.
Again, if our bust is 10% or less, we have been successful in presenting the facts once the town has endorsed it on their side. Most towns require a referendum. Some towns go through their town council or city council structure for appropriations. So whatever that mechanism might be, which I believe you would have to go through a second referendum to approve the increment, having the results, the successful results of that referendum in hand, we could then make we could present our request to the commissioner. And if it's within that 10% or less factor, it's there's likelihood, I just had one come through a couple of months ago, where the commissioner signed off on it. We did not have to go back to the legislature.
What about the clause or issue of our building, the new building, was going to be less expensive than a renovation, and having the state acknowledge that and giving us a higher reimbursement rate?
To frame that, there's language that says a renovation or an addition or code work gets your town reimbursement percentage. New construction takes a 10% haircut on the reimbursement rate. However, there is a section of statute that was written in order to inspire people to do the fiscally responsible thing, which is associated with renovation. And it says, if you go through the planning process and you consider the cost of renovating your building compared to new, and the rules for renovation is new say, we're only going to give you this status, which allows repairs and replacements to be funded in an existing building, if it's less expensive than building a new building. Well, folks somewhere along the line said, well, that's great, but if it's less expensive to build new, why are you going to penalize me? Why not give me the incentive to do the responsible thing and buy the less expensive product with a new building? So there actually is statutory language that says you take a haircut on new construction unless, in this scenario of comparing renovation to replacement, so it's really called a replacement rather than a new building, which new building is like adding to your inventory. So if a replacement is cheaper than a renovation, you should get the town's rate, not rate minus 10%. That whole piece of statute got muddled when former folks were in charge of leadership at the department. I've spoken to the new director. We've talked about it before the new director came in and the interim leadership was in place. And during the interim, it said, no, new is new. I said, you got to go to X page in the statute. You got to read this section. And there's a report from the Office of Legislative Research that was published in 2022, which highlights that section and describes it exactly the way I just presented it to you. That if a replacement is cheaper than a renovation, don't penalize people, give them the full town rate. Right now, people have talked about your project in the light of rate minus 10%. We've made our request to the new leader of the department. We've asked that they look at it. We've provided them the backup documentation. I'm still waiting for an answer. Now, it's not that they're ignoring us. It's that there was this new HVAC grant that was approved by statute last year, which had a due date in the recent past. And this is the first time that people can get money for these things without going through a full building renovation. So there was a lot of interest. They've got a tremendous number of requests that have been put before them, and they need to sort through that because there's a timeline for those grants to be implemented. So they're a little bogged down right now. I've sent the right data to, I believe, the right people, including their legal department, and we're waiting for their answer. So I would think well before we're in a position to go out to bid, we'll have confirmation as to whether they're going to, I'll use the word, stick it to us for 10%, or if they're going to agree that the statute says what many of us believe the statute plainly says.
Do we need to get legislation involved if they don't agree with what's in there?
I think it's more an administrative solution because the statute already says, and the Office of Legislative Research, who explains what statutes mean, has already put that in their text. I think if we hit an obstacle, in their decision, that there are internal routes to take without going back to the legislature.
Did we also provide them our estimates and showing the cost differential between the three options or two options?
I'll have to go back through my actual submission. I believe that the budget pages from your referendum package were provided as well to show that you did study both, and this is what your outcome spoke of.
Because I feel like that the result of that may weigh in on our ultimate budget conversation.
True. Yeah, if X plus something is still less town dollars than what you thought you were originally spending, it's a much easier sell to the community.
All right, anything else?
I do have a question, which perhaps is related to the purchasing policy. So how close do you think we are with the CM contract?
Right now, I've got a draft. Newfield is familiar with the language because they've signed similar agreements in the past. I don't, and we provided copies, during the solicitation phase. So, there were no strenuous objections to any terms there. We just need the town's attorney to take a look through now that the names and the numbers are in the right places, and give their concurrence that we can move forward with
I
it.
think the attorney's
Okay.
supposed to get back to Sharon tomorrow.
Okay, good. Because my question is really, if Newfield is starting their assessment of the schematic design right now, and we don't have a contract in place, are we able to perform work in advance of having a contract in hand? Where I work, procurement policy says we cannot do that. So I just don't know how that works in this industry, in our town's purchasing policy. Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, if Sharon were here, she could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, the traditional municipal perspective is if you start work without paper being signed, you're at risk.
Okay.
The only recourse is that you walk away with an empty pocket.
Okay.
And I'm not hearing any objections from Newfield when we brought them online and said, hey, we're ready for a schematic estimate, will you do one? I said yes, so.
Okay. No, I get it. I would love for them to do the estimate. I just want to make sure that we're following process. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or anything else, Jack, you want to?
Well, do we need to make a motion to potentially authorize the project management not completing the schematic design estimate and then moving that?
No, I think I'm just asking for a consensus. It's not
Okay.
an action item. I mean, at some point, if we don't do it, and my people don't invest the hours into future estimates, then we'll give you a credit at the end of the project. So then you'd have to vote to accept the credit. But
So we just have to say, kind of agree that we're comfortable with.
yeah, since we're
Not
going to
having
have,
that
we're
estimate.
going to have a CM's estimate, you'll have two to compare. So I think you're still covered.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure for the record.
All right, as far as budgets are concerned, we made some adjustments based on the costs that we received from the commissioning agent. I believe there may be a further adjustment. We might be able to tweak the pre-construction line values now that we have Newfield on board. But generally speaking, we're still in the same ballpark. We're on budget. We've only paid to date about $45,000 on the middle school and less on central admin. Our encumbrances are just under $3 million on the school as far as professional services fees and some miscellaneous expenses that have been incurred. So really not in a deep spend at this point. And again, you're self-funding all of this until the grant is approved. Again, minimal, under $1,000 paid to date on central admin, about $250,000 in encumbrances for the for the services that pertain to that. And that's it for our report tonight. For easy peasy, no invoices tonight. We will have a package of invoices at your next meeting.
All right. Any comments or questions for Jack? All right. Just a question I have. Our next meeting is January 18th. What day is it today? 18th. I will be traveling that day. I was wondering if anyone would have an objection to move it to a Zoom meeting just for that day. Or would you rather have it in person and I'll dial in?
No objection to a Zoom meeting.
I think we were going to propose that we do the dry run for the community update on the 18th just prior to the meeting.
That's right.
We were going to try and do that in person. So if we do that might vote for an in-person and then Rosanna on the phone.
The dry run can be
Or-
done remotely too.
I'm fine with that too.
Is the
Yeah.
forum going to be a remote thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm fine with that all being on Zoom if you guys are.
Do we need to vote on that? Moving it to Zoom? I don't think so, right? We're
No.
still meeting.
Yeah, we're not moving
Anyone
the
ab-
meeting time,
anyone-
right? The same time.
Yeah, same time. We're just going to do it
We
via Zoom.
don't do it enough.
Uh,
We may need to have the town clerk post something that is changed.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. Okay, so, yeah, we'll do the 18th via Zoom. All right, thank you, everyone. That's really helpful. Any other comments, updates, announcements?